everyone, and welcome back to The Girl with the Shovel. I'm Angela, and today we're going to talk about repotting your snake plant. Okay, so usually snake plants need to be repotted every 2 or 3 years to help kind of freshen up that soil. But a few signs that it is also time to repot your snake plant is one, if you have roots that are really circling and starting to come out of the bottom of your pot. 2, if your soil is starting to break down and it isn't holding your plant in anymore. 3, if your plant is starting to kind of fall over or looking weak in general. That's kind of what's going on with mine. And then 4, if your pot is damaged or it's too small. Sometimes you'll even see some of those plastic pots kind of bulging at the sides. That's definitely time to repot your snake plant. Okay, let's talk a little bit about pot selection. Now first, you want to choose a pot that if your plant is growing too big for its current pot, then don't pot it up too big. Just choose a pot that's 1 or 2 sizes bigger than your current pot. If you have a pot that's too big, it'll hold on to too much moisture, and then you could run the risk of having root rot. Next, terracotta is great. Okay, this adds a lot more weight for your plant so it isn't falling over, as well as it helps with some of the moisture issues. So if you have a terracotta pot, I would use that for your snake plant. Plastic pots are also fine, but because of, like I said, with the taller varieties, especially having issues falling over, I would choose a plastic pot and then have another heavier pot like a ceramic pot or even a terracotta. I would just put it straight in the terracotta, but if you have like a ceramic pot that doesn't have drainage holes, then put it in a plastic pot and then put it in that. So it will still kind of hold it up with the weight, so it won't fall over with the light plastic pot. Next up, I wanted to touch on soil. You want to make sure that you're using a good, light, fast draining soil. A lot of people use cactus or succulent soil for this, but I also have a DIY snake plant soil you could check out in my video here. So let's get on to seeing my somewhat sad snake plant. Don't judge me for this, okay guys? This has been beat up a lot. Whoa. So your first step will be to take the snake plant out of the pot and start massaging the roots. Get that soil out. Here I've got my my tray here, and it's already got some good soil in it, so we'll just keep adding to that. Okay, if your plant has outgrown the pot, then it'll probably be a little difficult to get it out. I've had those before. You sometimes on plastic pots, you gotta kind of push the sides, as well as if it's really stuck, or especially like terracotta, sometimes get a long knife and go around the inside of it. That'll get those roots that kind of stick into the sides of your pot there. And then you can also try soaking it, see if that'll help. But don't soak it too much because these plants are semi-succulents, so you don't want to do that. So for step 2, you're going to be inspecting the roots. Now this is especially if you have some unhealthy plants, if you have any mushy stems, or if you have any brown, brown, yes, if they're dry, but a lot of times you could get the black mushy stems, or roots, and those roots you should remove, cut back to a healthy root. And if you really are having problems, then you might just have to propagate the leaf. You could check out my video on snake plant propagation if that is you. If your plant is just super overwatered and you just have a whole bunch of mushy roots, check that out. You can definitely propagate the stem and save what's left of your snake plant. Okay, so you can see we've got some good, healthy new growth here, but there are still a lot of root growth that we need to have in here. And there are a lot of just kind of not that healthy looking sections. So if you are looking to propagate through division, now would be the time that you separate your plants, and then you could pot them into their own little pots like these here. So you can see that is definitely, that could go in its own pot. But I think I'm going to group a few of these together to make it look nice and full. I want to put it back in the same pot with more soil and better soil. And then I'll just have it run like that. Now also keep in mind, if you have unhealthy snake plants, then yes, you'll definitely want to go through the roots and you'll want to remove any bad sections, right? Like I'm doing right now. This has not had any attention for a long time. But if they're doing great and they're growing just to be bigger and you're going up a pot size, then I wouldn't remove all of the soil, because then you run the risk of it falling over. Okay, so your next step is to put it in a pot and start filling it up with some soil. Now, I could separate these like we talked about. I could separate them and put them into separate pots, but for now I kind of like the look of a nice full pot. So I'm going to grab my pot and I will start filling it up. Okay, so because I want these all in the same pot, it's going to be a little difficult. I'm going to start putting in a little bit more of that base soil. So if you watched my other video on DIY snake plant soil, I've got a bunch of that in the bottom here. I'll put that in here just for the first few scoops. There we go. And I've got some more right here since it is a rather large pot. So we're going to start filling this up a little bit. That's about good, so I can start putting some of my snake plants in. Now, these don't have very big roots. Snake plant in general don't have very deep roots, especially if they're not super healthy. So I'm going to have them a little deeper in the pot, but that's okay. I kind of like the look of them a little deeper in the pot, so you don't see the crown very well, but you see the nice stems coming out. That's personally what I like. Let's try to get some of these up straight here. Okay, so now that it's all potted, I've got the soil in there, I've got it compacted a little bit. You also want to make sure that you aren't covering the crown of the snake plant. So right above where the roots start, you don't want to have the soil level too much above that. Okay, and then last, for the taller varieties, I like to add support. It's especially helpful if you're loosening up all of this soil and really messing with the roots there. It's very, very helpful if you add support now instead of waiting until it falls over and then you have to repot it all over again. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to trim some of these leaves here. So what you're going to want here, I usually use some bamboo poles and then some string. Okay, now you can also use things like just sticks or whatever you have to prop it up. Small varieties, I've used chopsticks before. They work just as well. So, so sometimes I use 3 or sometimes I use 1 depending. Today I've got 2 spare ones today. So I'm going to stick those in the soil. Okay, and then I'm going to run my string around it. And just kind of help make sure that these stay tight and together. said, I'm going to trim these off. It looks like they got bent, hit by something, and fold it over. Okay, so there you have it. This is your newly repotted snake plant. So in a few weeks you should be able to take all of that off. It should have settled down. The root structure should form around it and help keep those roots in place with the soil. So that will be good, and then it won't look like your latest knitting project. So I wouldn't water it right away because the soil is already lightly moist and you want to let it dry out, especially if you were cutting off a bunch of waterlogged roots or black mushy roots or anything. It can sometimes let bacteria in, so give it a few days, a little bit more on the dry side, and then you can start watering it like normal. And if you don't know how to really get a good snake plant and keep it alive, you can check out my video all about snake plant care. And then I also have a video about troubleshooting, what to do when your snake plant isn't looking that great. So if that is you, go find that in the description below. I'll have a link to it there. And let me know in the comments below how it all went, what you want me to do a video on next. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss another video. Have a good one.